I think it's service. Where
I'm relocating all the way. Yeah, I'm relocating all the way outside. How about
there
now?
we go.
Oh, we're getting better, baby. We're getting better. Looking good. And the locks look fantastic, man. You're looking good, buddy.
Man, listen, man, the locks is for the people, man. That's what I do it for, you know? It's for the people.
Yo, listen, when I came down to Delaware, when I first came down to Delaware, just real quick, I came down to Delaware, I had these long braids. Me and my son had long braids on. If you look at some of our 2005 and 2004 pictures, you see I had long braids, man. As soon as I got down here and they told me how much my hair was going to get braided, how much it cost, I said, I got to cut them off.
Uh-oh.
It wasn't New York prices, man.
You would think it'd be cheaper, right? You being in Europe,
so,
it'd be cheaper.
I think where I went to, one of my African brothers and sisters was trying to juice me for $90-something.
Oh, man, I don't know nothing about those prices, man. My thing's short. So is that expensive, Mel?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. He said yes. He said yes. Yes, I agree with it. You know, Malcolm, we got to get your introduction in.
Yeah, so I'm a little different than Newdy, and I'm a New Jersey native. I'm originally from New Jersey. I graduated from Seton Hall University in 2008 with a degree in chemistry, and later on I got my master's degree in 2013. I got a master's in business administration. So, you know, I've traveled a good amount of places for me to get to this point right now. As Newdy alluded to, you know, we have what's called Influencer Lab Media, where we influence the influencers, man, and it's been a ride ever since we started, you know?
Well, you know, I've been watching y'all, and you know I've been a big supporter. I think you're doing great things. I think it's important for us to have it. Here's the thing that I've always said, and especially coming from a big city, I've always said this. When we get to our smaller cities, they seem to want to do things at a slower pace for Black folk. And I don't know if y'all ran into that since y'all been down here, and since you a native son, Newdy, you're a native son, and we've been down here for a minute now. Yeah. Have y'all been running into that? Newdy, you can take that question.
Yeah, I mean, you know what, like, just me being an entrepreneur, like, you know, like I when I went to Del State, I had a clothing, I sold clothes, right? So I had a clothing store on campus. And I used to go to New York 3 times a week from Delaware State University. And as I, you know, started to move around more frequently, I seen how things were so fast paced. You know, even for us, the way things were moving were, you know, I'm like, yo, I need to be in a bigger city. And I do feel like Delaware is always behind, especially when it comes to our people and us doing things that I feel like, you know, we should be light years ahead. Being here, I'm looking at Atlanta and a lot of these other, you know, cities. And, you know, we catch on to things late. And I think that it's lack of exposure. So a lot of people here, to a certain extent, like they don't get a chance to go out more to see what else is going on in other places. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to go and do things in a lot of different areas where we see what's going on, what's in the new, and we're always studying our market. And here it's just it's unfortunate, man. But hopefully, you know, it gets better and we'll be able to be the trailblazers for that.
I think, and Malcolm, how do you feel about that?
Nah, I completely agree. I think what it always comes down to is exposure and access, right? So number one, especially when you're talking about Black and brown people, right? That's always like the issue, is exposure and access. Like, it's like us being able to be in a space where we actually know about what's going on, and then having the access to the resources and the information where we can actually make some sort of a difference or some type of an impact with the things that we want to do or the things that we're trying to do. So I think, and it's not even just where we're at right here type thing. It's in all Black and brown communities, right? Access to information, being exposed to what's bigger and better and greater. And, you know, once those two key things are met, then we're able to elevate and aspire to the next level.
You know, I agree with you, and I applaud all the things that you're doing. One of the things that I used to say here all the time, and up in Brooklyn, you know, being a native son of Brooklyn, and when I came down here, Delaware is my adopted place. Let me tell you something. I defend Delaware more than people who were born in Delaware. I don't understand that. I live here, so I got to defend it. You think what I'm saying? But what I have found is that our conversations have been decades behind. Our conversations or what we talk about. And then the other thing is they don't know, a lot of people here and up in Brooklyn. I'm not excluding Brooklyn. I'm saying Arkansas, Brooklyn, wherever. They just don't know where to place their conversation when it comes to Black folks and Black business and Black enterprise. What do you think about that, Newdy?
I think that, it's just one of those things, like even what Malcolm said, when it comes to like just access and being in the know, like a lot of people just don't know, right? And I feel like, that's one of the things that we have to do a better job at, is going out and getting that information and being able to I always said, and I don't know, this might not be, this probably could be in a lot of different communities. I always say, like, it takes the energy of the youth and the wisdom of the OGs. When there is a disconnect, a lot of those things, we should be learning from you guys from what happened in the past, and we know what's going on as a younger generation. We have that energy for things that are going on now, and I feel like we got to bridge that gap. And until we do that, I think we'll be at the same, at the start.
What do you think about that, Malcolm?
I wholeheartedly agree with, being in a space where we need to be bridging the gap. What me and Newdy are very intentional about is being in a space. It's kind of, we're in a very, very unique space. Like, we can take the wisdom of you, Jakim, and then we can connect that wisdom with somebody like you to somebody who's 15, 16, 17, 22. And, we're like literally that force that is bridging so many generational gaps that it's crazy. And I think what happens is that once we're in a position, but the thing is also is that the older generation and younger generation has to want to be in a space, to be in a position for the bridge to be gapped, right? So you can have a whole bunch of seasoned folk who know all this information, but if they don't want to give it out, then we can't do what we do in terms of bridging a gap. And then if we don't have the younger guys that want to be in a position to grow and learn and be in the know, then our job is null and void.
You're absolutely right. I'm 6'4", so I have a whole bunch of cousins and places in Brooklyn. So we used to play basketball all the time. And all the teams that used to always win was a team that had about 3 or 4 young guys and 2 older guys. Because if you got that team goes far. If you have a whole bunch of older guys, couldn't win over at the West 4th Street playing hoop, couldn't win over there. We won a lot of times. We used to be called homeboys only, the white brothers. We used to do our thing. And you're absolutely right. The same way for a basketball team, that you have to have a certain amount of young people and a certain amount of maturity, and that's when you got a winning team. And that's what we have to do in the Black community, and that's for sure. The other thing that, was there any question that you want to ask me, Newdy?
Now, so in terms of, I think that, what is your take on the political scene in Delaware when it correlates to our community and being able to get our resource and them advocating for us, not just when it's time for the vote? Like, what is your take on that? Just that whole arena.
Well, I tell you what, and Malcolm, he knows that's a loaded question for me. I'm going to tell you the truth. The one thing about the hard talk is supposed to be the hard talk. I always tell everybody, don't sweet talk me. That's left for my wife. My wife is the only person that can sweet talk me. I want the hard talk all the time. And in our political scene in Delaware, and I'm just going to talk about Delaware for right now. I'm not going to talk about New Jersey or any place else.
Yeah.
Delaware's Black political scene here is always playing what I consider is begging to be heard. We have strength here. And the problem is that we have never used the strength the way we should have. Don't get me wrong. We've had great political leaders. Herman Holloway Senior, Herman Holloway Jr., the Plants, great, even J.J. Johnson. But what happened is we can never unify our people because everybody, even if they're moving in the same direction, because see, I don't mind if you got something different than me. You do something different, I don't mind. Just as long as what? We're moving in the same direction. What do you think about that, Malcolm?
So I 100% agree with you and with everything that you said. I think that when you talk about having that hard talk, I think that a lot of our leaders lack the ability to have the hard talk, right? And sometimes I even feel as though, no, I'm serious. Like I feel like our like we're too, as you said, like I don't want to like begging. I don't know if that's the word that I would use, but we've been put in a system and an environment where it's easy for us to conform and it's easy for us to enable other people to conform. And with that being said, that's a lot of Black and brown people here, like not only just in Wilmington, but just period. That's Black and brown people, period. And I think what happens is that once we put ourselves in a space, because if you think about it in a sense, I'm a leader, Newdy's a leader, you're a leader. We need to stop looking for certain people to be leaders, and we need to start to come together as a collaborative, and we lead as a group as opposed to lead, like looking to this one person as a leader, and we lead as a group. Because Newdy and I, we always talk about group economics, and that's not just with money, but that's with legislator, that's with politics, that's with whatever. If we start to focus on the group as opposed to a singular entity, we'll move a lot forward a lot faster.
And Newdy, I'm going to give you that question, but let me just say this, Newdy. One of the things that I have found is that too many people want to be the voice of it. I don't need to be the voice. If you're doing in that thing, we can talk about ADOS and African American descendants of slaves or any of that stuff. If you're moving in the same direction and your organization is a good organization, I don't have mind being a part of that and still do my thing. Yep. But you got to connect those dots. Now, I will say this, Malcolm, and the reason why I say this, I have been in Maryland and I've been in Chester. And Chester, PA, just for our audience, if you don't know, Chester, PA is mostly a Black town, and I've been in Maryland, and I have seen more cohesiveness, more stand-up-ish from elected officials that are Black that will actually have entrepreneurs making sure entrepreneurs in their community get their due. So I've seen it in Maryland, and Maryland, especially Silver Spring area, is one of the wealthiest Black areas in America. So
very influential. Say that. Say the last part again.
The question is, Malcolm said that it's all over the place. Some places aren't doing it, but there are places in America that's doing it better than we're doing it. And one of those, I have to give props. And if you're in Maryland, I give props to your organizations out there, NAACP and all over. I give props to that. Have you been in Maryland and done some stuff there?
Not too much in Maryland, DC.
DC, Chocolate City. Used to be Chocolate City.
Used to be. It's gentrified. It's definitely. No more Chocolate City, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And the other thing that I always said is a closed mouth is a closed destiny. And when you have a closed mouth on things that's going on in your community, you don't have to be an elected official to get things done. And you know me, ideas are cheap and abundant. Execution is everything. You see people come up with 1,000 ideas, but if you can't get it done quickly, I can't even mess with you. My attention span is like this is small. What do you think about that, Mal?
Oh man, it's so loaded, and I'm me personally, I'm very, very passionate about this because I don't know, I love Black people. Like I love Black people. I want us to always thrive. I want us to be on top. I don't want us to always be using, I don't want to call it an excuse because it's very, very real, but we know things like systemic racism. We know this stuff exists, right? But I wrote today on Facebook, I wrote on there, personal accountability, personal responsibility. Like we have to put ourselves in a position nowadays where we have to move together as a collaborative. It has to happen. That has to happen. And also, in order for us to move together as a collaborative, each individual person has to take personal responsibility of their own life, of their own mind, and they have to want to move in that collaborative direction with the whole. If everybody doesn't start to have that type of mindset, then we're always constantly going to be in these situations where one of ours get killed and all we do is march.
Well, Newdy, I'm going to get to you real quick. Yeah. We've been in this stuck rut for over now 60 years. If you go back to the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s, almost 50-something years, we've been in the same rut for such a long time. And I got to be honest with you, I even think that we had more in the 90s than we had in the 2000s. I thought we regressed. And every time they do that to us, and every time we do it to ourselves, we think we're making 2 steps forward, but we take 5 steps back. What do you think, Newt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like it has to be more like group economics, right? Like I listened to like Dr. Claude Anderson, which
very good.
Oh man, I love Claude Anderson. And a lot of things he talk about is, we haven't moved one iota. That's what he says, right? And the thing is, it's because we don't own anything, right? We don't own any like farming, manufacturing jobs, producing cotton. Like, we don't own anything. And I think until we come together as a collective, we don't have no black banks. We don't have no supermarkets, right?
Well,
so one thing that we always...
Let me go back to the black banks real quick. I think you did something real quick. We did the Banking Desert Initiative on the Route 9 corridor. Ron Handy, Larry Lambert, Jakim Muhammad. That was one of my biggest things about it. A lot of my audience don't know, but I'll tell them. When I was in New York, I actually owned 2 businesses. I actually had Jafunza Music, which was my business that was a collaborative music business that we did produce and stuff, and I owned a security business. I had a business where I had guys employed in the clubs, and they were bouncers. So I'm coming from a business aspect when I say that what we have is we don't have the backing that other groups have when they trying to get their political and their economics, like downtown. The Route 9 corridor should be a downtown area. Should have been a downtown area from the Memorial Bridge all the way down to Rogers Road. And right. We still ain't got the economic engine, the commitment from our state to do those things. We've seen all the studies, and usually when they come into the neighborhood, the studies that they do, the contractors, or they get paid and the community gets cheated. So right. I know there's a lot there, but I'm gonna tell you this. We should have a downtown enterprising thing on the Route 9 corridor, and it was said since 2010, and we still don't have it.
So is that right? Like who is, and like who is the person or the people who have the access to
all
right?
Of them.
So what I'm saying is this: like one thing, like even we talk about the certain things like that. Like a lot of times that people don't know about it, right? The right amount of people, and it's no knock to anybody, but I feel like being able to push that information out, because there's a lot of guys that are younger that want to see like things like that. Like I would love to be a part of, helping, black
and revitalizing the Route 9 corridor.
Yeah, listen, like you have so many people that I know personally that live in the Route 9 corridor, because this is where I live, right? So we would love to partake in that. Like the older guys, the younger guys, the women, like we need to come together as a collective. And how do we do that? That needs to be the focal point.
Right. Now, Malcolm, I got a question for you. Have you ever invested in a black company other than yours?
So actually, and I actually let Newdy talk a little bit further into that, because we Influencers Lab Media, we really move as a collective, And Jakim, I don't know if you heard of the gentleman down in Atlanta. His name is Jay Morrison.
Oh yeah.
So so we as a collective, we have put some of our money with what he's doing. And I'll let Newdy, I'll let you elaborate a little bit more on that, because Newdy was the head. Newdy was taking the lead when we was investing that money. So go ahead, Newdy.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, so like what he's doing with the Tulsa, Oklahoma real estate fund, you know, like that is something that I love. I'm like, yo, like this is a young guy. He's not even 40 yet, and he's doing what Marcus Garvey set out to do. Like no one has ever raised that amount of money he's raised. He raised about $6 million within a year, right? And then he turned around and did it again. I think I'm not sure we raised his second round, but we got in on the second round. So like, I want to see how that looks, how other people are doing it, so we can then take that and bring it back to you know, to Delaware and where we're located at. So that's big, man. We want to be able to you know, any entrepreneurs, if we do it all the time, like we might not all the time invest our money, but we invest in our time and our knowledge, and a lot of young entrepreneurs
and
that we
invest
wish
those dollars in the product.
Say that again.
And invest those dollars in their product. You don't have to invest in the money. You just need to patronize them.
Yeah, and like the knowledge and the access. We have access, and it will cost them tons of money to be able to access these people, or like even the knowledge that we possess, like we give it away for free because we know how it feels not for someone not to do that for us. So like we would never, like our mindset is totally different.
Well, I tell you this, you're absolutely right. I love what the venture capitalists are doing up in Harlem, like the Harlem Angel Investor Club. John Henry, he's doing some fantastic stuff up there. I'm a big fan of what he's doing. I hear it all the time that our Black folks need financial literacy. And I hear it from people saying it all the time. But how can you convince somebody that they need to take a financial literacy course when they are being paid minimum wage and they have no money at the end of the month to do anything, to do any investing?
I mean, like,
cool.
I mean, we can define that.
Yeah, that's a one. That's a loaded one, right? Like, and it goes back to the environment. It really goes back to the environment and, you know, the people that you're around. Like some of my greatest growth, I always say, has come from my greatest uncomfort. But to give that a little bit more context, right? My uncomfort has led me to being around certain types of people who force me and press upon me to do better and to do greater things, such as, you know, my Newdy, people like Tamara Varela, Kenyon Wilson, you know, people who are all the time. It's like, yo, Malcolm, you have to do better. And what happens is that we are the average of the 5 people that we're around majority of the time, right? And if your average isn't adding up to what you need it to be, then guess what? You're going to start subtracting from that average constantly, right? So, you know, I think, you know, your environment and the people that you're around, if you're the people who are forcing and pressing upon you to elevate, you will stay at a minimum wage job forever. And you'll be at minimum wage mental as well. Right.
What do you think about that, Newdy?
Yeah, I mean, you got to change your people, places, and things. Like, you know, like in some cases, like people have to also want it, right? So it's not enough for people to say, hey, you need to be doing this. Like it has to come at a point in the time in a person's life where they're just like, yo, I'm just tired of being broke, and I'm just tired of, you know, just
tired to say I'm broke.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, we got to start with our kids. Like you know, it's easy. It's like they said, it's easier to boys than it is men.
That's right.
So now, like, we have to start with our youth. We have to, you know, like with my daughter, you know, I installed that in her early, right? So if we can't get it to the people that, you know, sometimes like certain people just can't reach. They gotta want it. And we have to be cognizant of that, you know, we just gotta, you know, whoever wants it, we gotta give it to them, and we can still put out there. If not, you know, we get our youth and we empower and teach them.
You're absolutely right. I will be the first one to tell you that if you ain't ready now, maybe later on you'll catch up. But I got to keep on moving.
Gotcha.
one of the things when I was told, we only got a little bit, like 9 minutes left. One of the things I was told years ago, some of the best advice was, be ruthless with your time. And Jakim Muhammad is ruthless. And they'll tell you, I've had a lot of people calling me up from all these other places wanting, I'm ruthless with my time. And the other thing to go with that, being ruthless with your time, is I never let anybody waste my time twice. If I see that I give you one shot, your pitch or whatever you're doing is this, and then I come to you, call me up and say, listen, Jakim, that first time to go right, I get over there. If it's rocking, I'm with you. But if it ain't rocking, I'm leaving. Never let anybody waste your time twice. That's how I
respect that. I respect it. Listen, man, time is way more important than money. Like once you lose time, you can't get it back. Money you can always get back. So I agree with that.
Now, Malcolm, I got this one for you. One of the other 10 tips. I had a whole bunch of 10 tips. I was doing the Robert Kiyosaki. I was listening to everybody when I was doing my businesses and all that. So it was flourishing. But the one thing that was so funny, we lost Luke. Yeah, he's back. The one thing that's so funny is that they told me documentation beats conversation every day. So I had to make sure that I got my paperwork right. And that's one of the things I find a lot of our Black brothers and sisters don't do is get that paperwork right. What do you think about that?
Nah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, that's like, for instance, I'm really heavy in, natural hair and the hair care, right? And when you talk about natural hair, locks and hair care, right? There are entities out there that if you do not have the correct licenses, they will come in and they will shut you down, and they do not care. If you don't have the right insurance or you don't have the right certifications for what it is that you are doing, they will shut you down. When you talk about minority people, we typically, the majority of Black and brown people trade their labor for money, trade their time for money. So certifications and having, your paperwork and things like that together on the back end will save you so much trouble on the front end when these entities are coming after you, or taxes, insurances, whoever. You've laid your foundation, and you don't have to. It's almost kind of like, you don't have to be looking over your shoulder, like,
that is right.
Did I not do this? Did I not do that? When your paperwork being straight is everything. That's everything, especially in a Black business. That's everything.
Yes. I will say this, and Newt, this one's for you. You're absolutely, what we're talking about is actually what needs to be talked about in the community. Straight up, get your paperwork, get your documentation, do that paperwork first, but have that passion to get it done. The other thing I wanted to talk to you before we go on is you said something about, we were just talking about people when they're ready. One of the things that we all learned in any type of business school, whether you did it in college or you took a course online, is that you have to have a good pitch. You have to have a good presentation. And thirdly, proof of concept.
Ooh.
That is one of the things that I find in business people can do. Tell me about that, Newdy.
Man, listen, proof of concept is everything, man. I think that, a lot of times when you want to do something, like you can read a book, right? But experience trumps everything, right? So I think when you actually do it, like, what to do, what not to do, how to do it, what roadblocks there are, and how to overcome them. So proof of concept is everything, because you just know, just how to move forward. And I think that a lot of times when people start businesses, it's always best I always say, if you want to do something, just jump off the building and see if you can fly first. Because the time is never right. People are like, what, I'm gonna get this certification, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get this degree. But I'm like, by the time you did all that, I just tried it, and everything that you learned in college or them certifications, I'm not saying don't get it, but I didn't experience. I can tell you what to do, what not to do, how to do it, when you should do it, the whole gamut. So I think experience is everything. That's your best teacher.
I see Malcolm shaking his head in the affirmative. He knows exactly what we're talking about on that. You're absolutely right. And the other part of that is when you invest or you go to a Black business, return on investment. The ROI aspect that I have seen that people just don't get. They just don't get that return on investment. Basically, to me, how is this going to add value? Especially in our communities, when you're starting a business, just don't start a business because this is what you like. Want to see if it adds value. What do you think about that, Malcolm?
Man, listen, we live in a thank you economy right now, right? So if you're not adding value in whatever it is that you're doing, you're null and void, right? We live in this time in society where social media is, and even if you're not on social media, which if you aren't on social media, that's crazy to me. But in everything that you do, if you're not adding value to the people, places, and things, why are you even doing this? Like, if you aren't in a position to give the knowledge that you have out where it can literally bring somebody else out of the muck and mire, I don't need that. I don't need that knowledge. So I just feel if you're not in the space to bring value, don't come across my path in the least bit. That's how I feel.
You're absolutely right. So we only got a little bit more than 2 minutes left, and I just want to touch on one thing. One of the things that I have to talk about Black families is that a lot of times we allow our family members to be a part of our business because we know them. They're part of our business. My father's done did it. My grandfathers all had businesses. But sometimes that is not the best thing to do. I always say this. Blood is thicker than water, but loyalty is thicker than blood. So I have a lot because there's some people you can't bring into your business, even if they're your family members. What do you say about that, Newdy?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That's true. And I think it goes with, of course, your family at times.
And know who they are.
Yeah, they think that, because we feel, oh, that's just Newdy, man. I ain't gotta come into work today, man. He gonna understand. That's family.
But will they do you dirty?
Yeah, but you know what? I think that's like like we gotta change that narrative. Like when you look at like the certain ethnicities, when they like the Chinese store, for example, you see the kid working on the register, right? You come in, like they're getting that firsthand knowledge because they're being taught to work for yourself. In terms of especially the family business, because I can't inherit a job. If you're making $100,000 a year, I can't pass that off to my son or my daughter.
Let me just say this. I've seen that in Asian communities, but they want the kid to go to college and do something else. They actually don't want them to do the business.
But they have something to fall back onto, though.
They want them to learn about it. Yeah, right. Malcolm, we got just a couple of seconds left. I want you to just say about the Win Factory and anything else that you do.
Oh man, so the Win Factory is it's the first Black co-working space in the state of Delaware. So, the Win Factory is where winners win. So when you come into the Win Factory, if you have a idea, you can walk in with the idea, walk out with a business. So one of my business partners just walked in, my man Stan. Look at him, best loctician on the planet in my eyes. Mm-hmm. But the Win Factory is everything. Also, look out for the
Malcolm, you can finish it up.
Newdy got going on.
Yeah, we getting ready to go, Newdy. What else you got to say?
Yo, so the last thing we definitely so right now we're working on a campaign called Not Just Doctors, and it's all about COVID-19. We're in this crazy pandemic, and we want the Black and brown people of our community to understand that stay your ass home. Pardon my French.
There you go. We're going to leave it on
stay
that.
Ass home.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again, Malcolm and Newdy, for it. Thank you again. Y'all have a good one. And thank you for watching the Daily J with Jakim, the Hard Talk. Peace.
My man.